Hello and welcome to Asia News Week. I'm Yvonne Yong. This week we'll ride along with Jakarta's dragsters, meet China's dumpling night riders and head to a rebel base in war-torn Myanmar. But first, our top story. There's been an outpouring of grief in southern China after a shocking attack which left 35 people dead. Police arrested a 62-year-old man who drove his car through a crowd of people. But tributes have been removed and international reporters at the scene harassed. East Asia correspondent Kathleen Calderwood reports.
This horrific incident appears to have been shrouded in secrecy, at least initially. The police in Zhuhai, which is in southern China, right near Macau, initially only released a very brief statement after the attack occurred on Monday night, and discussion of the incident was censored on Chinese social media. But police have since released more information. They say a 62-year-old man drove a small SUV through a large group of people who were exercising at the Zhuhai Sports Centre around 8 p.m. on Monday night, killing 35 and injuring more than 40 others.
I was just across the street on the opposite side from where it happened. At the time, the authorities had not released any information on what happened. I heard some colleagues mentioning it. I couldn't believe it at first, but it was confirmed later that it did happen.
It is very shocking. My husband goes jogging there every night. I called him immediately and found out he wasn't free to go. I felt shocked. Every day, many of my friends, neighbours and customers who buy clothes from me often go running at the sports centre. I messaged my friends at once to ask if they had gone there. Fortunately, none of the people I know were there that day.
It was shocking. It's something that happened near me, just at Zhuhai Sports Centre. The person involved is already 62 years old. He was of a relatively old age, and I don't know why he did this in such a large public space. Driving his car recklessly, it felt like a terrorist act.
Now, the Chinese President Xi Jinping has also acknowledged what has gone on. He's released a statement through state media calling for the strict punishment of the offender in accordance with the law. Locals were laying floral tributes and candles outside the Zhuhai Sports Centre in honour of the victims of this terrible attack, but reports are that they have been removed by local security staff, in some cases almost immediately, and we've also seen efforts to stop foreign journalists from reporting on this incident. There was extra sensitivity in Zhuhai this week because it is the location of Airshow China 2024, which began on Tuesday, where the People's Liberation Army is showing off some of its most advanced warplanes and attack drones. So there were already a lot of domestic and international media in town, and there is video of BBC correspondent Stephen McDonald, a long-time correspondent in China, being interrupted and really accosted while he's reporting on this attack outside the sports centre. Mr. McDonald says in his experience it's not uncommon for the local Communist Party branch to dispatch people in plain clothes to attempt to stop the reporting by foreign journalists of such attacks like this. However, he really wanted to highlight that it really doesn't stop them reporting, but it does take away from the stories of people doing the things like laying the wreaths, and in this case, other reports of people lining up outside the hospital in Zhuhai wanting to give blood to assist the victims of this attack.
The man accused of raping and murdering a doctor at a hospital in August has gone on trial in the Indian state of West Bengal. The accused, a police volunteer, appeared in court telling reporters he'd been framed. The case sparked nationwide protests and mass strikes by junior doctors, demanding justice for their colleague and better security, including CCTV in all hospitals. More than 120 witnesses will give evidence during the trial, which is being heard behind closed doors. 10 men have been killed in a gunfight with Indian security forces in the remote northeastern state of Manipur. Officials say the men were trying to attack a police station. Manipur has been racked by violence that broke out in May last year. That was when a court ordered the state must consider granting equal economic benefits enjoyed by the ethnic Kiki people to the majority Meitei community. At least 250 people have been killed and 60,000 displaced since fighting began. A Japanese mine-sweeping ship has sunk off the island of Kyushu after catching fire on the weekend. The MSD Fukushima fell on its side before the blaze was extinguished, allowing the Japanese Coast Guard to search the vessel. One of the ship's 40 crew members remains missing and one was hospitalised with non-life-threatening injuries. The cause of the fire is being investigated. Satellite images have captured large columns of smoke billowing from Indonesia's Mount Lewotobi Laki-Laki. Several international airlines cancelled flights in and out of Bali as the volcano spewed ash clouds as high as 10 kilometres. The eruptions began November 3rd, forcing thousands to evacuate and killing 9 people. Authorities have expanded the exclusion zone, but some people have been reluctant to leave their livelihoods behind.
At night, the danger from Mount Lewotobi is clear to see. The ash spewing from the volcano has been a constant sight for a week.
We ran among the falling sand and rocks. Smoke and fire continued to glow.
The volcanic activity is coating nearby villages in ash, tainting food and water sources.
All the plants have been destroyed by the dust.
Officials say more than 10,000 people have already left the area, but there are thousands more to go. Some are worried about how they'll live, not near the volcano, but away from it.
I'd rather evacuate by myself because I have fields and plants here so I can collect and sell the crops in order to survive.
And a lack of resources has been complicating efforts.
We plan to evacuate some of the remaining residents again, but due to our limited transport fleet, we will wait. As soon as we can, there will be further evacuation for the remaining villages.
Last Monday, a midnight eruption killed 9 people.
There were my parents, my youngest brother, my younger brother and his wife and children all died.
63 were injured and thousands of buildings, including 25 schools, were damaged by debris. The plight of villagers remembered a world away at the Vatican.
I am close to the population of the island of Flores in Indonesia, affected by the eruption of a volcano. I pray for the victims, their families, the displaced.
Officials say they'll keep working to evacuate everyone from within a 9-kilometre zone of the volcano. The column of smoke in the distance, a reminder of the dangers of staying. Lauren Beldy, ABC News.
Typhoon Usagi has swept across the northeastern region of the Philippines' main island, Luzon. Usagi was the 5th typhoon to strike the Philippines this month. More than 24,000 people in the province have been evacuated, including those forced to flee by earlier typhoons that inundated their towns. Another tropical storm, Manyi, is making its presence known in the archipelago over the weekend. In Indonesia, police appear unable to stop a growing and dangerous trend. Motorbike drag racing is a fixture on the streets of Jakarta each weekend, where young people play cat and mouse with police, sometimes to gamble, but often just for fun. Here's Indonesia correspondent Bill Birtles.
Friday night in East Jakarta, and the night riders have emerged. At every red light in this infamous intersection, they gather.
It's just my hobby. It's a thrill, but the other bikes are faster than mine.
Helmets seem to be optional here, as are the speed limits, apparently.
It's getting near midnight now, and for 2 hours we've seen non-stop drag racing, but the weird thing is there's just no sign of police anywhere.
There was an accident once, and I'm not sure whether the rider died or not, as he was evacuated straight away.
Finally, after midnight, the police emerge and the night riders move off to another part of town.
The police chased after me once and we all dispersed in different directions. But they got me and confiscated my bike. My friend had to pay them $150 to get it back, but it didn't stop me from racing again.
16-year-old Raja Chandra Kusuma is known as a jockey, a young gun for hire who motorbike owners employ for bets against other riders. He can win around $50 per race.
In the beginning, I was afraid of getting caught by police, and I was afraid of falling off the bike or colliding with others. But I've never crashed, and the near misses have made me more experienced.
The police were hesitant to talk on camera for this story, but cracking down on night riding hooning appears to be half-hearted. One officer told us they were ordered to stay here until we and our camera left. And even when they do patrol, there are meeting points all over this giant city for riders to gather. Many of these young men feel there's just not much else to do for fun on a weekend evening in Jakarta.
My parents forbid me from racing, of course, but I'm doing it anyway without telling them.
A forbidden speed thrill that shows no sign of slowing. Bill Birtles, ABC News, Jakarta.
With Donald Trump set to return to the White House, speculation has been rising over the president-elect's relationship with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. During the last Trump administration, the pair had a historic meeting in Singapore. But as editor of Korea Pro, John Lee explains, a lot has changed since then.
The North Koreans are not as keen with meeting Trump as they used to be. They have closer relations with Russia, for instance. And also Kim Jong-un has a long memory of feeling burned after the last summits that he had with Donald Trump, where he got essentially nothing. And so they've also branded South Korea as an enemy state. And although Pyongyang has stated that they appreciate the leader-to-leader relations that Trump and Kim Jong-un enjoyed in the past, they've also specified that that doesn't mean that state-to-state relations are anywhere close to what Trump and Kim Jong-un had. And so I think the North Koreans are going to be a bit more hesitant about reaching out to Donald Trump this time around. We have to remember that when Donald Trump was first president, before he actually met with Kim Jong-un during those summits, he initially started with fire and fury. And there is a chance that Donald Trump might try to do that again, to up the ante a little bit, to put pressure on Kim Jong-un, so that Kim Jong-un will feel compelled to actually meet with Donald Trump again. But as I said just a moment ago, Kim Jong-un has a very close relationship with Vladimir Putin at the moment. And Russia is one of those countries that is able to deliver for North Korea everything that they want: food, energy, weapons technology. And so Kim Jong-un has a lot of things going on in his mind, and Donald Trump is not his only option anymore.
Women in the US are pledging sex strikes and rejecting relationships with men, as well as motherhood and marriage, in what's known as the 4B movement. The surge of interest comes in the wake of online misogyny from male commentators, emboldened by Donald Trump's election win. But the movement has its roots in South Korea, as Jan Villalon explains.
In the wake of the U.S. election, there's been a lot of renewed focus on 4B, a feminist movement that originated in South Korea. But what's it all about?
It is a definition of for refusal, and which is like not having a sex with a man, don't date with a man, and don't get married, and don't have a baby.
Some see 4B as a radical lifestyle choice that rejects traditional gender roles in a patriarchal society.
4B movement is about crying out that it is no more possible to get in relations with men in any ways. So we are saying that we would find a new way to survive without those following 4 components of heterosexual society.
In 2016, the shocking murder of a woman in a public restroom near Gangnam Station brought new focus to the concerns of femicide and violence against women, and it was a catalyst for many to take more action.
From 2016 to 2018, that we were also in despair, and it was very catastrophic, and it was an urgency for us. We made this kind of principles of activism and so on, so we got a very strong solidarity among women.
And combined with the global impact of the Me Too movement, this empowered South Korean feminists to draw attention to other factors contributing to the country's endemic gender inequality.
There is a double burden of care and work. And in Korea, the gap of dividing the house chores between wife and husband is very high. But it is very highly expected that I would do all the chores and then I would earn money. There is a huge paradox on women. You need to care about your family, but when you do care about your family, then in the workplace you will be punished. So it is not really pleasant expectation of life.
Then there's the disturbing spy cam epidemic, with women being exploited by videos filmed without their consent. It's a trend that has evolved into the current surge of AI-generated deepfake porn. While the South Korean government has taken steps to crack down on these digital sexual crimes, women are calling for more to be done to address the pervasive issue of misogyny, with feminists in America spurred by the re-election of Donald Trump and sparking new interest in the 4B movement as a form of resistance.
After this election where women were pretty much told to their faces that no one gives a about them, don't forget, ladies, we do have power.
You men, through your actions, you convinced us all that we are good, that we don't need you.
Operation 4B. Going to be promoting the 4B movement.
I think we should have the 4B movement everywhere.
Now Trump is elected again, but it is kind of an emergency, similar emergency for women, so it is very neutral, and I'm not surprised at all.
While the world is focused on wars in the Middle East and Ukraine, another deadly conflict is raging in Southeast Asia. Since Myanmar's military violently seized power nearly 4 years ago, 60,000 people have been killed and 3 million driven from their homes in the so-called Forgotten War. Opposition to the junta's rule and the fight for a return to democracy is still strong. Southeast Asia correspondent Lauren Day and camera operator Fletcher Jung embedded with one of the resistance groups for this special report.
The long journey in to a country isolated by a forgotten war.
So we're just crossing the border now from Thailand into Myanmar. You can see the road is pretty rough, it's pretty muddy, and all the rain from the wet season has just made it even worse. One of the few ways in is with an invite from one of the rebel armies that control the borderlands. Today we're guests of the Korthulay Army, one of the country's newest and most controversial. Its leader is this man, General Nadar Bomyar. He created this army after he was sacked by Myanmar's oldest rebel group, the KNU, about 3 years ago, when troops under his command were accused of massacring 25 unarmed prisoners. It's an accusation he doesn't deny.
I didn't give the order, but I look at the situation, I think they're not wrong, because it's happened during the fighting, the intelligence information that they're closely working with the Burmese military intelligence.
So you say they were military spies. The military denies that, but regardless, the laws of war are pretty clear that unarmed combatants shouldn't be killed. That's a war crime.
It's happened during the fighting, and the soldiers who are responsible for the situation, that in that moment they said, okay, there's something we got to do. And then, but they did it, I think they did it, they made the right decision. Because otherwise those people would come back and attack our villagers.
The Geneva Conventions, though, says that killing spies, killing unarmed combatants is a war crime. Do you accept that this was a war crime?
This is not a war crime because it's happened in a war zone. War crimes mean when you arrest them and you kill them where there's no fighting. This happened in the war.
An investigation into exactly what happened will have to wait. For now, General Nadar's forces are preparing to fight against Myanmar's military, itself accused of horrific war crimes, including torture, rape and airstrikes on schools and hospitals.
I'm an expert in killing. I've been interested in killing since I was a child.
While the Myanmar military gets its weapons from Russia and China, the rebels use homemade RPGs from parts ordered on the black market. Even some of the drones are homemade, but they can still pack a punch. This one can carry 2 60mm mortar shells. 22-year-old Jennifer has just joined the drone team after leaving her job as a kindergarten teacher in Yangon to be part of the resistance.
Even the youth are also very important. We can also be a part of the revolution, and we can also be useful for our current people and current states.
Do you ever worry about being here, so close to the front line in this war?
Yeah, I've been worried about that one, but I believe that God will protect His children.
People call it the Forgotten War. Do you feel like the rest of the world has forgotten Myanmar?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like that, but I think we have to fight back ourselves or our country.
Like so many of these rebel military bases, this one is right next to a village. But here, the children don't dream of being astronauts or firefighters.
The reason I want to be a soldier is because we don't have freedom in my country, so I want to be a soldier. I want to stay peaceful, but I also see that my people are suffering.
So civil war is nothing new here in Myanmar, but what's different this time is just how many people from the Burma ethnic majority have left the cities and joined with rebel armies like these, which have been battling the military for decades now. And together, against the odds, they're winning. From the bustling city of Yangon to an army base deep in the jungle, women too have taken up arms.
I will keep fighting with the people until the revolution ends.
You've been learning to use that weapon. Would you be prepared to use it to kill one of the enemy?
Yes, I will shoot. I will keep shooting. I think it won't be too long if everything keeps going the way it is. We will win the revolution.
This young couple, also from Yangon, met in the jungles of Karen State after fleeing the city separately following the coup.
I was very heartbroken because many of my friends were killed. We lived in the same area and we were like brothers. During the protests, as shield holders, we were staying at the front line, but people who were behind us died. That's why I came to the jungle.
At the start of this year, among so much death, they welcomed new life.
At first, I didn't want to have this child because we live in the jungle in the middle of the war. But when I came to think about it, I was happy to give birth to him because he is a baby of the revolution. Maybe when he grows up, there will be peace in Myanmar. Or even before we die, we want to see peace in Myanmar.
The wet season rain brings a welcome pause to the fighting. But when the skies reopen, the constant threat of airstrikes will return.
When the jet fighters come, I get scared, but I just stay with my parents.
As they wait for the rain to stop and the fighting to begin again, the soldiers sing Burmese revolutionary songs about groups from all backgrounds uniting for a brighter future. Lauren Day, ABC News, Myanmar.
ShoheiOhtani's historic 50th home run ball has gone on display in Taipei, just weeks after breaking a record for the most expensive baseball ever sold. Fans gathered at Taipei 101 to see the historic ball that sold for $6.5 million to a Taiwanese private investment company. The Japanese baseball star made history this year by hitting 50 home runs and stealing 50 bases in a single season, the first ever MLB player to do so. The display of the 50th home run ball attracted international tourists and is hoped to foster more cultural exchanges between Japan and Taiwan. Now this week, thousands of young people packed a Chinese highway riding their bikes between two cities to buy dumplings. The so-called night riding army cycled about 60 kilometres between Zhengzhou and Kaifeng, mostly on public share bikes. Estimates range from tens of thousands to 200,000 young Chinese jumped on their bikes, overwhelming Kaifeng and prompting police to impose restrictions. Well, let's find out more from reporter Jojo Zhou. Jojo, tell us, how did this trend start?
Thank you so much, Yvonne. So early this June, for uni students, they want to have a little celebration. So they were thinking maybe we should get like some soup dumpling from Kaifeng. And those first students are actually from Zhengzhou. So they just hop on bikes and start their little journey from Zhengzhou to Kaifeng, which is around like 50 kilometers. And it took them around like 3 hours. And then they actually posted this journey on social media, which is kind of attracting more people to join them. And ever since then, plus the local authority is sort of encouraging people to, they have a Kaifeng riding initiative. So attracting more people to join them. Over 100,000 people joined them.
Logistically, I imagine it might be quite difficult. Authorities, how have they responded?
Well, like I said before, they actually encouraging at the first because they thought that's such a great way to, encouraging local tourism. But since a lot of people are actually riding their shared bikes, and then once they reached the Kaifeng, they actually maybe left the shared bike over there, which is causing sort of traffic jam. And then they would say, oh. And a lot of local residents complain about, this has brought a lot of inconvenience to our life. So ever since then, I think for the past 2 days, like a local authority was sort of like, oh guys, you guys should probably take it slowly and not just like going there like once. So it's sort of like encouraging that.
What has been the reaction on social media? What have people been saying about this journey?
Well, there's a lot of like fun comments I saw from social media. Some people say this is such a like a riding army, never seen before. Some people say, oh, this is once in my life, and they're probably not gonna have a second chance. So they would say, I definitely have to join. And some people were joking about, oh my God, like, all the toilets were sort of packed. They have nowhere to, to find a nice toilet. So a lot of interesting comments I saw like on the social media.
Really fascinating. Jojo, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Animal lovers have been giving a final farewell to Australia's giant panda pair, Wang Wang and Funi. The pandas were taken out of their public enclosure at the Adelaide Zoo before returning to China. Sophie Holder reports.
The zoo will be giving the pandas some special enrichment today with letters, drawings and well wishes from their many adoring fans. The bamboo forest has now been closed to the public as Wang Wang and Funi are making their final preparations and packing their bags, I'm sure, to make their big trip back to China. The pair have been in Adelaide since 2009, and in that time there's been a lot of hopes for a baby cub, and despite many, many years of that cub watch, they unfortunately haven't had any success on that front. But we heard earlier this year when the Chinese Premier Li Qiang visited Adelaide that we would be receiving a new pair, and that visit of his was the first by a Chinese Premier to Australia since 2017, and it was really huge news for us to be receiving a new pair of pandas. We know that Yilan and Jingchul are the new pair that we'll be getting, and they're around 3 years old. Now, Jingchul, his name translates to Autumn Star, and he's been described as a very handsome boy, so we'll be most excited to meet him. While Yilan, her name translates to idly blissful, which I think is just such a good descriptor for a panda, and also something that we should all try and embody a little bit more to try and relax and chill out. And ZooSA's chief executive, Elaine Benstead, she says it'll be mid-January at this stage before we're expected to see these pandas. They've got a period of quarantine to go through. We spoke to some panda fanatics yesterday, and here's what they had to say.
Obviously come to say goodbye, and we'll come back and welcome the new ones, won't we?
And what are your hopes for our new pair?
Baby pandas.
Baby pandas would be amazing.
Mainly.
So we'll be waiting patiently, or maybe a little bit impatiently, for this new pair, and there'll be plenty of people hoping that they might bring a cub as well.
And that's the program. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.